These stories help attract visitors to the Treasure Coast. So if you're from the Treasure Coast, subscribe, like, and share. And if you're not, subscribe, like, and share anyway. Peace.
There's a building, it used to be an antique store. It's an old building up on the hill, a mile or two north, and it's on the west side. It's a really nice looking house, two-story house. It's white and it's got orange clay tiles. I've heard all sorts of rumors about who owned that, including Gloria Swanson, who was a Hollywood actress at the time. I don't know why she'd be in Florida, but anyway, you know. And I've also heard that Al Capone used to pay a visit because it was a whorehouse. And there is a rumor or a story that it's haunted by the ghost of a man who used to go, a married man who used to go to the house. And one night his wife was waiting for him, and when he stepped up the wooden stairs on the seventh step, had a big creak in it, and that's where she whacked him with a knife and killed him. So the story is that he haunts the building. I don't know if it's true or not. So.
I'm going to tell you a story that you won't believe. I used to work midnights. My husband was sick with, he had bladder cancer, and he was sick, and my son would stay with him at nights. He gave up his job and was on family leave and would stay with my husband at nights while I go to work. I worked in Vero Beach. And one morning I came home. I was at work and a woman appeared to me in the laboratory, and she said to me, how is your husband doing? And I says, oh, he had a rough night, but he's doing pretty good. And she gave me a poem. She says, you know, I wrote this poem over 20 years. The first part I wrote in 10 years, and then 10 years later I wrote the second part, and I wish I'd brought the poem to show you because I have a copy of it. And she says, I left it for you, and because I knew you would need this poem. And the morning I went home, the Thursday morning I went home, and something was strange. In my house, something was strange. And when I went inside, I can't explain it, but it was not the same house that I come to every day. And I went in to greet him, and I said, good morning. And I touched his toe. You know, I used to touch his toes and say, good morning, how you doing? And through the blankets, it was ice cold. And I said, you need something on your foot because it's so cold. He says, no, I'm all right. I says, yes, you need something on your foot. And I spread a blanket over it. And I said to him, don't get up unless you call me so that I can help you up. He says, no, because, you know, you've got to get some rest. So I'll leave you alone. I says, no, you call me when you need to get up. And I went into the kitchen to make myself something to eat. And I says, no, I don't feel like eating. I'll just make a cup of tea. And I made a cup of tea. And when I came back, he was up and in the bathroom. And I started yelling at him. I says, why did you get up? I told you not to. Anyhow, he says, I helped him back to bed. And he laid down. And he says, get Thelma. Tell Thelma I want to see her. So I called my neighbor and I says, G's not doing well today. Can you come over? He wants to see you. And when she came over, he says, Thelma, I want you to go to the kitchen and make me a cup of tea. And she says, okay. So she went and she made the tea and she gave it to him. and he drank the tea. When he drank the tea, I says, don't you want me to fix you something? He says, no, I'm all right. I'm all right. Anyhow, to shorten the story, while Thelma is there with him, I noticed the trees in the backyard was going like a tornado had come through it. And the trees in the front yard was going back and forth. And then all of a sudden, the front yard, the trees stopped, but the backyard, the trees were going crazy. And I turned to Thelma and I said to her, Thelma, do you notice the trees in the backyard? I'm going to lose all my trees. She says, yes. And she says, I wonder what's happening. I said, but look in the front yard. Nothing is happening. And she says, I don't believe that. Shortly thereafter, my husband died. Shortly thereafter, he died. The trees was his pet because he planted most of them. And they were going so much that I didn't believe. And she said, and she talked about it even till today. She's bedridden now. Thelma is 94 years old and she's bedridden because this happened 24 years ago. And she always talk about it. And she says, I often, where her bedroom is, if she's on her bed, she can see right into my yard. And she says, I often see Gene walking around the yard like he used to. And I says, what? She says, she says, yes. I see him from my bedroom window walking around the yard. So I would say that from my story, there are ghost encounters. It's just that I didn't encounter them. We have to make things light. We have to make it light. Anyhow, on his funeral day, we went and we had a service at the funeral parlor, and they said, and the hearse decided that they would drive by the house one last time with his coffin and everything. And as the hearse came up from Bayshore along Lucero Drive, we turned on Hibiscus, and there was a whole flock of white birds just flew right over the casket from the west to the east, and it flew right over the casket car. And everybody says, ooh, that's unusual for something like that. But that was my ghost story. From his death to his funeral. That's my ghost story. I feel his presence in the house, but I never saw him or anything like that.
This has been Real Ghost Tales from Tales from the Fort. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend.